Hello everyone and welcome back to the Honeybee Stamps YouTube channel and the Perfect Match Video Hop. Make sure you check out all the information in the description box below for where to hop along to see our great design team member videos. I'm creating today with the Jackpot layering stencils and the coordinating dies. So this is a 6 stencil set. I'm going to hold these up or show the layering guide later so it's easier to see, but then there are the little dies that are going to cut out the images that we're going to stencil on using those layering stencils. So here is a look at the layering guide. This is going to give us a better look at what we're getting here. So you can see the 6 stencils at the top, and then down below you'll see all the images there that will be stenciled on when we use those stencils all together. Now I'm going to start out with my waffle flower sticky mat, and I have a light blue sheet of cardstock. Now, with the stencil set, there is no rhyme or reason where you needed to start. However, I found it easiest to start with the large playing card images, as you see they're kind of trickling down from below. And what I try to remember when I'm using layering stencils is you want to start with whatever image you want to start with, but you want to start with your lightest color first. Because if you start with a dark shade of ink, let's say a deep red or even black, you're not going to be able to see the lighter colors on top of that, or what we're going to stencil on top. So for some portions of our background, I am using our opaque or brilliant white ink to stencil on those cards, as you can see there down below, because then all of my darker shades like this peeled paint is going to go on super easily over the top. So that was peeled paint. I'm going to pick up the next stencil and get it aligned. And I am using the images that are already stenciled onto the paper, using those to line up each layer that comes next. So for example, the suits that go on the playing cards, I'm lining those up and sticking down the stencil, and then I am making sure that everything aligns, even in between colors. And you can see, if I want something really good and juicy, and because I'm stenciling in areas that are really small and changing up my colors for each for each image, I'm using these little finger daubers. Those get really nice and juicy with the ink, and it's you're able to apply a lot of ink at the same time by kind of dabbing that on. I'm not scrubbing the little foam applicator back and forth like you would, let's say, a blending brush, but I am just dabbing that on. And for this section of the background, I'm using a yellow. This is fossilized amber. I'm making sure that those areas are lined up with the little green, um, it's almost a sprayed area. And you can see how light the application was there with our blending brushes. That's why I'm switched to a foam dauber, because they get really, really juicy, and I'm able to pounce on a lot of ink at the same time. And you can see me working my way around the stencil. I'm making sure that everything is lined up and shifting if I need to. So don't be afraid to shift your stencils around and hold it down. And that's the way you can apply multiple colors to different images by using the exact same stencil. You can see now I'm going to work my way around. I'm making sure that I have all the yellow portions done, and then I'm going to move on to a totally different color, because in that same or on that same stencil, I have stenciled on a gray, which is hickory smoke. I have stenciled on the yellow, and now I'm going to go to a worn lipstick, red. And so our kind of a really dark pink. And I'm going to make sure that those suits are lined up on those playing cards before I start stenciling or pouncing on that ink with those little finger daubers. Now, once I have the worn lipstick applied over the top, and that's going to be the lighter of the pinks, I should say. So again, I'm working from lightest color up to darkest. So you want to think about that as you're applying all of your colors, is you want to apply all of your lightest colors first and then go towards the darkest. So I'm adding my worn lipstick, and I'm going to go around the stencil and make sure that I have all the little hearts. You can see the little squares. You can see the suits now applied to the playing cards. And then I am ready to move on to the next stencil and color in the images for that stencil. So you can see I'm going in with fossilized amber again, and I'm lining up the squares. So the yellow square is going to butt right up to the pink square, and together those are going to make dominoes. And my pink of the worn lipstick and the fossilized amber color are the lightest colors because those are the base colors. And then I've gone ahead and inked on what's going to be the color for the little lemons. So for example, if you had a little slot machine and you won and you had cherries or lemons or something like that, there are these sweet little lemons in this background. Now around this little jackpot sign, I have inked on yellow on the rectangle. There are these cute little circles or little polka dots, which are actually like the little lights that would light up around it. I'm inking those in a, let's see, lumberjack plaid because that is darker. So I want that layer to go on top of the yellow. I want it to be darker. And I'm just going around, and you can see me moving my fingers around, making sure everything is lined up before I move on. I'm going to grab the next stencil and the next set of colors, and then we're going to move on to the next images. So for the images on this stencil, we're going to add some rustic wilderness green. So it is a darker green than the peeled paint that we used before. And we're adding in little details. Now I'm just using my blending brush for this section. You can see I'm adding a dark layer onto that little flare that's there on what's going to be our little jackpot sign. I'm adding details onto the poker chips. I'm adding color onto our little dice, and also another darker leaf there next to the lemons. And so I'm going to add on this darker green rustic wilderness layer, and then we're going to be ready to move on. For the last stencil, this is going to be the deepest, darkest color of each image. So for example, to the hearts and to the diamonds on the playing cards, I am using lumberjack plaid, which is the deep red, and that's going to add the details over the top of the lighter worn lipstick. Next, I am lining up that stencil with the playing cards. I'm going to add black soot over the gray portions of the stencil, and then also I'm adding that lumberjack plaid over the top of the lemons because there's these cute little like dimple marks on the lemons. I'm holding up my stencil to make sure that I see everything. I can place it right back down and line it up, so no fear if your stencil slips or you don't tape your stencils down. I don't prefer to tape my stencils down. I like to be able to shift it and move it around to make sure that it's lined up. I'm going to use one of the sponge daubers again and pick up the black soot ink, and then I'm going to start moving over and going over everything that needs the deepest, darkest black details. So that is going to be on the poker chips. It's going to be the little dots on the dominoes. It is going to be the suits of the cards on top of that hickory smoke gray. And I'm just going to keep working my way around this stencil for everything that I need to be the black soot. And I'm going to make sure that I have everything colored in. You can see now the 777 on our little jackpot sign is going to be in black because that black is darker than that rustic or the lumberjack plaid, I'm sorry, that is underneath. So you want to work from the lightest colors on the very bottom and then work up to the darkest colors on the top. And that's how you're going to get all of those great little details to stand out when you're using layering stencils. Okay, this is a look at the finished jackpot background, and I am going to create two different cards out of this one stenciled background. So I am going to slice this in half diagonally from corner to corner, and I'm going to use one side with the background, and then I'm going to use the dies to cut out the little images on the other side. Now I am trimming down like the little pieces of excess paper that were not covered, and I'm also going to trim these down later on to fit on to my A2 size card base. And so you can see I'm just taking a second and cutting off the excess paper that was not stenciled, so like the very edge that is not covered by the stencil. Here is that background, and now I'm going to get two cards out of this. So using the dies, you can see the paper there on the right hand corner. I have used all those dies and cut out all the little images. I have a little happy pile there, and I'm going to add the new Lucky to Have You sentiment dies to both cards. So you can see one card there in the baby blue. I am going to use the corner of that background that we stenciled. I'm going to mat that with some white paper just to make it all stand out. You can see how cute that Lucky to Have You sentiment is going to be just with white paper and then some silver glitter paper. I have cut really small strips of the silver glitter paper just to add a little bit of sparkle in between each layer. It's just going to add to that kind of fun gambling jackpot feel of both of these cards. Now this pattern paper that I'm using is from our freebie paper pack for this release. That is right, we have a freebie paper pack, and it's got the little suits. You can see like the spade and stuff there, green on green in the background, so super cute. And then I'm going to arrange again the silver glitter paper, the Lucky to Have You sentiment, and then all those cute little die cuts that were created with the stenciled background. I'm going to layer right around that sentiment. So now that I've got my card designs all ready to go and I have everything set up, I have layered the stenciled portion or the background portion onto a white little triangle of paper that's going to fit just nice and neat up there in the corner. I'm going to add a small little bead of adhesive and add down my silver glitter strip right there in between. And then I can just trim off the edges with my super sharp scissors here, and that's just going to add a sparkly little detail right there in the center. And then I can add my Lucky to Have You sentiment. Now I'm going to pop up my sentiment with a little bit of foam tape, and this card is going to be all ready to go. Now I'm going to make sure that my sentiment is pretty straight on here before I stick down those little foam dots that I have on the back, and then I'm ready to move on to card number 2 with our die cuts. So I'm going to glue down that pattern paper from our freebie paper pack. Right there you can see the white card base is what I'm using just to kind of stick out to give me that little margin or edge around the sides of that triangle that I cut. Again, I'm going to add the very thin, narrow strip of the silver glitter paper and just trim that off. And this time I am going to add our sentiment, the Lucky to Have You, first. That way I can arrange all those cute little die cuts all the way around the sentiment. So I'm going to add a little bit of liquid adhesive, and then I can carefully line that silver glitter Lucky to Have You right on top of the white shadow or base piece of that. Again, I'm going to pop this up with some of our tabbed foam dots because that's going to allow me to tuck in those little die cuts where I want them to be. I can just remove the tabs easily, and then I'm going to place this up there almost in the center, and then I'm going to arrange those die cuts over the top side of that, kind of like I have a little swag or a little spray of all my little pieces. Now you'll notice here that I fudged some of those little die cuts. You'll notice that the little jackpot sign that I have here, that's not whole, but nobody's gonna see it. That's how I'm getting so many cards out of that one stenciled background, is nobody's gonna see that I cut off of the edge of the paper. The little domino there, the edge was cut off. So I'm just going to hide that behind our nice big sentiment. I'm going to add the little poker chips and the die, and then I end up going back to the leftover backgrounds that I had. Um, the edges for the blue card there and the pieces that I had left over from die cutting out of the background for the die cuts that I had there. And I'm going to cut even more pieces to use. And you'll kind of see how I do this. I'm just going to cut them out and then tuck them around. So you can see I'm going to cut out the heart card there. So I'm going to place the die down, tape it down. I'm going to cut out another poker chip, tape that down so I can cut it out. And then I have two of the little jackpot signs, or the little 777 signs, and they are from two different pieces of paper. But I'm going to put them together. See how that matches up just like a little puzzle piece, because that's where I cut it right down the center. I'm going to glue both of these down to just a white sheet of scrap paper, and then I'm going to die cut that whole little jackpot sign out, and nobody's going to know that I actually split that in half to create two different cards. So I'm going to glue this down and then arrange my little die for that sign right over the top, cut that out, and then I have another little 777 sign that I can use on my card front. Now, some of the little die cuts I added flat with just our liquid adhesive, and some I am popping up with our dimensional foam dots. You can see I'm going to finish this off right here with the little poker chip. Just poke that in there, and then I have the dice and another little poker chip that I can add on the other side. And then all of these cards are going to be ready to go once I get all this nicely arranged. So here's a look at our two finished cards using one layering stencil set and the coordinating dies. So here's the card that has the stenciled background, and then the one with the stenciled background and all those little die cuts cut out. Now here is a better view. I love that lucky to have you in that shimmering glittery paper. It's perfect with the jackpot layering stencil background. And then here is the second card with all of those cute little die cuts. I hope you've enjoyed this video hop starter video for you today. Make sure you check out the description box and hop along with all of our amazing design team members. Talk to you next time. Bye bye.